This drum set caught my attention the moment I saw it, which is pretty rare considering I've played like every other drum set in existence, and also this is another budget drum set. You all saw me play on that E-Star kit, and then you all saw me play on that E-Star kit, and then they asked if I wanted to do another video, and I was like, I really don't think there's any much else to say. I've kind of beaten the budget kit topic to death, but I checked their website, and this thing, if this does what it says it does, then this is a true winner, I think. Easiest unboxing ever. All right, we have some instructions. If you know drums, then you know that these instructions look a little bit weird. Looks like we have the heads, and it appears we have the nicer cheap heads. Ooh, look at these. So this was another reason this drum set really caught my eye. This drum set cost this much. I kind of forgot how much it cost. Considering we get these low volume cymbals, I would say is a killer deal. They are definitely low volume. So we have a set of hi-hats. Also, this is my first time really ever using a set of low volume cymbals. So it should be fun. And then it looks like a crash. Looks like a 16. And then a ride cymbal. Dang, that thing is flat. Okay, so now the real interesting stuff. Not this pedal, but it does come with a pedal. Ooh, this is the goodie box. We'll come back to this. Also, yes, I totally forgot. A yellow drum set. Something about yellow drums I just love. Pair of sticks, boom stand, floor tom legs, hi-hat stand, another boom stand, tom arms, throne base, snare stand, bass drum claws, and a bunch of tension rods. Snare drum. What's that inside though? Floor tom rims. Oh my gosh. They put the plastic bag on before they screwed this thing on. There's your second rack tom. Again, beautiful yellow wrap on it. Floor tom, bass drum hoop, bass drum, and the other hoop. This is what caught my attention about this drum set. We have a pad mounted onto an arm, and the arm mounts onto the drum. Then with this screw, you can raise and lower the pad so it's on the head or off the head. And basically you have a normal drum set with the capability of turning it into a practice drum set that is lower volume. The kit includes a 10mm wrench to install these pads, but I have a socket, which should make things a little bit easier, but of course you could totally just use the wrench. So we have basically a really short tension rod, add a washer, then we can take the pad and put it in the drum, and then put the screws in, and then you need 13 more hands to put the nut on. And I was referencing the snare drum because the instructions don't say anything about the order of washers and nuts and everything. So the snare drum had a washer on the outside and then no washer on the inside for the nuts. So I'm going to do the same. So now with the middle screw, we can adjust that to raise and lower the pad. I should also mention that the pad is spring loaded, so it kind of self levels as you raise it up or bring it down. And that's it. Now let's just do it 3 more times. That wasn't too bad. It only took me about 20 minutes to install all of the pads. The snare drum came pre-installed, but the bass drum pad gave me some trouble. Those 2 screws are loose, and no matter how much I push and wiggle and finagle this thing, those 2 holes just don't want to line up. I drilled out that hole a little bit bigger, so hopefully that's enough. If not, I'll have to drill out the other. Just a little bit tight, but we should be able to get it on. That's the only problem I've ran into so far. I will say they provide you with plenty of extra washers as well as an extra set of tension rods and nuts. The mechanism seems pretty solid. The only piece I would be worried about is this one little screw right here. That is the point where the pad arm pivots from, and on all of these arms there's a little bit of play. As you beat on this thing, that pivot point is going to take most of the abuse, and I guess the good thing about it is it's a regular, it looks like a machine screw that you can replace easily. You can go to like a hardware store and buy a new one, and then all of the other parts that are more custom, the kind of stuff that you can't just go to the hardware store and buy a new one, all that stuff seems pretty solid, and I don't think there'll be any issues with that. So far, I've been pretty impressed with this kit and the system, so let's get the heads on and see how it sounds. The heads on this kit are actually decent. The batter heads are like a knockoff pinstripe and are the same heads that came on that first E-Star kit, which were much nicer than the ones that came on the second kit from the video where I tested those cheap heads on a nice kit. And I know what you're thinking because it's been in the back of my mind this whole time. This kit will most likely work out nice as a practice kit, but how will it sound as a regular kit with these giant pads inside of the drums? My guess is the bass drum will be fine since the pad is so much smaller than the drum. This is a 22-inch bass drum and the pad is only 8 inches, but typically you want your bass drum a little bit muffled, so maybe the pad will break up the sound waves a bit and muffle it some. And then kind of the same idea with the floor tom. The pad is 8 inches and the drum is 16 inches. So floor toms can be hard to tune, so maybe again the pad will break up the sound a little bit and muffle it some, but hopefully it's not too choked. Oh, what is that? It looks like they dented the bearing edge, then tried to smooth it out with wood filler, but made it worse by putting a giant glob on. There's still a chunk missing, but at least that glob is gone now. The two rack toms are the drums I'm most worried about sounding choked because they're 10 and 12 and the pads are 6 and 8, so there's not too much room for the air to flow around, so we'll see. The snare is 14 by 5.5 and the pad is 8 inches, but this is the most shallow drum, so again, I'm a little bit scared it'll sound choked. The kit was just as easy to set up as any other kit. You are kind of forced to use the bass drum tom arm. I typically prefer to mount them off of a cymbal stand with separate clamps, but if you do that, the pad adjustments will be on the opposite side of the drum, so you have to reach over to adjust it, which isn't a deal breaker by any means. Also, the way I have my tom set up, I have to scoot the 12-inch out of the way in order to reach the bass drum adjustment screw. Again, by no means a deal breaker. So first, I have this mic. It's actually two mics. 3DO sent me this a while ago actually, and I feel bad since I've never used it, but this is the perfect opportunity for it. I have the pads engaged. Here is roughly what it would sound like if you were standing right in front of the kit. Now let's pretend that your family is in the living room next to your drum room. Let's see how loud it would be for them. Really not bad at all. So now to give you just a little bit more context of how the kit sounds, I'm going to set up my phone right in front of the kit. I'll play it in practice mode as is with the pads engaged and the low volume cymbals, and then I'll disengage the pads and put on normal cymbals and we can compare the sound. is a regular drum set, it sounds just fine. It was pretty easy to tune. These heads are a bit thick and a little bit muffled. Again, these are basically the same heads that came on this kit. The pads feel fine. I will say that they're a bit bouncy, especially the floor tom. And the bass drum is the complete opposite. It feels like you're playing against a cinder block. The one nice thing about the pads though is you're forced to have good playing zones, because if you play on the outside of the pad or off of the pad, it sounds completely different than when you play on the center. So now let's see how this kit sounds as a normal kit. I'll be recording with my normal mic setup, and also I'll have the normal cymbals on. Of course, the pads will be disengaged, so let's see if these pads really kill the tone of this kit.